This is our live tribe on September 21st, 5 o'clock Pacific here. In our marriage, maybe there's something we see our wife doing and we see that it's destructive. Let's use a simple illustration. Let's say she's filling up the schedule with a bunch of stuff. And maybe it's too much. It's exhausting you, it's exhausting the kids, it's exhausting her, and you see it as this thing that you need to step in and like change. But you know the second you do, it's not going to fly with her, right? You're going to be met with resistance. It's going to be an argument. And so the nice part of us that doesn't want to face conflict, he tends to bow down. He tends to be like, well, let's just let her have her way, whatever. And there's a dynamic that will form over several years, especially if you've been together for several decades, where she actually starts to lose respect for that man. So that's why we're talking about this, because there is that part in your gut where you do know that there's a time that you do need to be standing up to her. But there's that part of your gut that doesn't like how it explodes, how she responds to it. So you stop and now you don't know what to do. And a man who's confused, a man who doesn't know what to do next, he's not a confident man. He's second guessing himself. He's uncertain. And that is confidence is a key masculine trait I come back to a lot. That relaxed demeanor where you know what to do and you do it, and you do it with a slight grin on your face because you're so sure of yourself. So I want you guys to get off this call more sure of yourself. That's our goal. That's where we're headed to. So the three topics we're going to talk about in regards to standing up for our wife while still standing up for her at the same time. There's a balance between being a people pleaser versus being annoyingly stubborn. So we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about why standing up to your wife can lead to respect or resentment, depending on how you handle it. How to be the man if your wife is a type A or alpha personality. And I threw that one in there because of my personal experience in life. So if you can relate, great. About me, my name is Garrett Prettyman. I'm a s- I have a private practice of coaching guys that are in struggling relationships, helping them gain clarity and confidence. And I also work with the coaches at Good Guys to Great Men, where we've put together courses and communities to help men in struggling relationships and to become more clear and grounded and confident themselves in that family too. Again, it's a family. As we get to know each other, bonds form, groups start popping up all over the globe, and it continues to spread. So let's get right into it. The balance between being a people pleaser versus being annoyingly stubborn. So I put this picture in the middle of a pendulum. A lot of stuff we face in life is a sliding scale. It is a pendulum, right? There's extremes that can go either way. So on the far side on the left there, we see that people pleaser guy. He's the one that doesn't want to have to deal with conflict. He's the one that always says yes. He's the one that even if he sees his wife literally emotionally tearing down his own child and it's hurting the child, he doesn't step in because he doesn't want to have to make it worse or make her mad at him then. And so he's always trying to smooth things over. He's always trying to calm everything down. He's the grease in the gears. He's always that guy that tries to make there be peace, just wants everything to be smooth. And that is an extreme, right? There's a time for those kinds of things, but this is an extreme where this is his knee jerk response. She gets to know him as the guy that always backs down. But there's the other side of the pendulum. And maybe you can, or maybe you can't relate to this kind of man. This is a guy that I am sure even in your life you've observed. And it's the one where he holds his ground, but it's the asshole. He's the guy that never gives just because he's a dick, right? And maybe we've been that guy once or twice, and we know what it feels like to literally just be holding our ground because our ego is like, I won't bend on this because, and we're just stubborn about it. And I found this picture and thought it applied because you can see the frustrated woman in the back. The woman can sense that disconnection between the moment of what's really happening and how we're responding to it. She can see that this is coming from a wounded little boy who's insecure, that annoyingly stubborn asshole. So we want to talk about what it looks like to be in the middle, where we're secure and we're safe to be around and we're trustable. We're not going into either of these extreme versions of masculinity when we respond to things. So, why standing up to your wife can lead to respect or resentment depending on how you handle it. So, same situation, but how you show up can determine how this will go down differently. So, what we're going to look at here with this picture is look at the man in the middle. I wrote emotions on him because that's what's going on in there in this moment. Again, let's go back to the simple story. Let's say you see your wife uh, being disrespectful to your child and she's really hurting him and you don't like this and you feel an emotion about it. So here's the problem. Using emotions as our compass for when we take a stand destroys our wife's respect. She can sense if it's because it triggered us, because it pissed us off, because we were upset, because we finally had had enough and decided this is when I draw my line. She can sense if that is the motivator for why you're taking a stand. We need to realize that taking a stand, having a point of view, having a direction, a leadership energy of you is a masculine trait that is attractive to feminine. She is drawn to a man who knows where he's going. And we rob her of that unique, attractive experience if we use our emotions as the guide. And it would be the same for us. Think if I threw you in a race car and sent, you weren't the driver, you're the passenger, and you were sent down the interstate and somebody's at the wheel and he's like, I think we should go right. I think we should go left. I think we should go fast. And let's say he's just going with the whims of his feelings, the car's going to wreck. You want a man who trusts himself, who's coming around the curve in a way that he's slow and deliberate, right? He's intentional with how he shifts the car, how he turns the wheel. He knows what he's doing. And she gets the feeling that we don't know what we're doing when our emotions are what we're using to decide if we should step in or not. In this picture, I chose these different ladies because they're different versions of your wife you may experience. Go down to the lower left corner there on that picture and notice, let's say she's throwing some criticism at you. Let's say she's telling you, uh, you need some backbone. You need to stand up. I need a man that's there for me. And your response, because your emotions feel wounded by that, because you think you have been a good guy, you think you have been there for her, you think you've been a great provider. And so you want to defend, you want to come back and show her why she's not correct. But you're doing it because it's irking you and it's getting under your skin that she's criticizing you. So, this is what I mean by that dynamic where the emotions are what's driving our responses to her. Let's say she comes in as the victim, she's the damsel in distress and you feel, "Oh, poor thing. Oh, I should step in," and you do, in itself, the action looks correct, but she can sense the motivation. She can sense that this is a guy that doesn't know when to say no, right? He doesn't know when to hold a line. And even though what you did looked honorable and it looked respectable, and maybe you even looked back and thought, "Well, of course I did that for her." But it's that motivation of emotions that we've been using as a compass that is creating the problem, that's creating something that she's reacting to. So we think she's reacting to what she's talking about. The things she brought up, the things she's doing that we're trying to bring clarity to. But she's actually reacting to what it's like to hang out with you when you're a guy that can be pushed around emotionally. So see how there's a deeper thing happening here. When it comes to standing up for yourself, standing up for her, or even standing up to her. So I wanted to make this clear to you guys of this distinction of the motivator. Those ladies on the right, we can see maybe she's withdrawn and you feel lonely. So you start to disapprove what she's doing, right? She's going to not react to that positively. When you come in and you say, stop hanging out with your friends, it's really it doesn't feel right. Well, feelings are the result of how you've been thinking about what she's doing. And she can sense that if your feelings change, your opinions change. That feels feminine to her. Same if she's maybe loving today, so you decide, "Oh, actually, things are good now." I'm gonna support her, I'm gonna praise her, things are good because she's loving. Like, you wanna break the tie of your responses being an emotional response to what she's doing that day. And so taking a stand because we have a value is what creates the respect. So whether we're standing up for her or standing up to her, when it's because there's something that we believe in, that this is what we would do, and that has nothing to do with what our triggers are doing. It has nothing to do with whether she was annoying us. It has nothing to do if it was uncomfortable and awkward, so we wanted it to stop. We simply chose to respond because just like the race car driver, That's how you shift the transmission. And he's done it many times. And it's a natural response of, oh, that happened. Okay, this is who I am then. And you might be feeling emotions and feelings when you do this, but they're not changing your course. When you're a man who responds to situations because you have this deep belief that you trust and you're relaxed about and you're unshakable in, who you are doesn't change no matter what's happening. The people outside of you in your life can't make you be a different person. That is the only way to have something called integrity. A highly attractive thing in your marriage is when you're a man of integrity. And integrity means that you consistently are the same guy. So, with that clarity, we can start to see how if we don't have a solid, clear value system that we operate from, we're going to default to emotions. And if we default to emotions, I don't care how you stand up or don't stand up or stand up for anybody, it's going to feel wishy washy. It's going to feel compelled. It's going to feel insecure. It's going to lead a reaction from your wife. It's going to confuse you because it won't be proportional to what you thought you brought to the table. Women are very intelligent like this, they can sense those motivators. So our wife feels like we have her back when we have our own back. That seems so counterintuitive. So when we think about maybe there's a time, let's go back to the illustration I gave at the beginning of maybe your wife is planning the schedule full, no room for you to have any free time. It's exhausting the kids, it's pissing her off. You see that it's time to stand in and say, baby, we're going to take some things off the calendar. She needs to feel like you're not attacking her. She needs to feel like you're on her side. And amazingly, she feels that way when she senses you have your own back. And to have our own back, we'll talk more about this and I'll ask some questions directly to you guys because having your own back, like what does that look like for a confident man? What does that look like for an insecure man? What does that look like for a man who trusts himself? Like imagine a man who it's not that the second he finds out somebody's gazing at his wife with a lustful look that he walks over and punches her in the face. That's what it looks like when emotions are running the show. It's more about the man who, when somebody gives him push, he pushes back, but it's from a solid place. It's from a non-reactive place. It's a deliberate response that he has. That's how he has his own back. And when she can't manipulate us to react, she knows other women can't manipulate us and men, but especially the woman one. And that makes her feel secure in the relationship. So if in the past you've had to stand up to your wife because she's doing something toxic, she's doing something that goes against the mission you have for the family, she's bringing something in that's harmful and she doesn't see it or realize it, and you do, if you don't stand up to her, it communicates that you don't stand up to other people when they do that either, which makes her feel like you're a man that could be taken away by another woman because you can be emotionally manipulated. And when a woman feels like she's not secure in your relationship, when she feels insecure in the relationship like that, she's on edge. She's more triggered. She's more quick to argue. She's not as affectionate. She's more contentious. She's a different version of herself because she doesn't have that deep security. And a lot of us go through a similar experience when we first find out our wife maybe had an emotional affair. Or maybe she said, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. That insecurity comes rearing up in us. All of a sudden, we're like, oh my God, this isn't okay. I got to fix this. Like she has a similar response when she doesn't feel secure in the relationship that you are there. And you don't prove it by saying it. You don't prove it by saying, oh, baby, I'd never leave you. You don't prove it by putting a ring on her finger. She senses that you are always going to be there for her when you're there for yourself and can't be manipulated even by her. And so I made parentheses here to remind myself to not forget to mention something. It's a concept called positive ownership. Us guys do this naturally when we get a nice car or a truck that we really like. We own it, right? We change the oil in it. We wash it when it gets dirty. If the windshield breaks, we get a new one. We own it. It's ours. And it may not be popular in our culture and society to imagine that we own our wife. You're probably not going to get on the front page as as a popular guy if you started talking like that. But there's a biological response women have that they can't escape from, and that is they do want to be owned. But it's not that they're your servant or slave. They want to be owned in the sense that you're tuned in and aware of when you need to fix the windshield, or you need to change the oil. Like she's just as important to you as your vehicle, and you're going to take care of her as if she's an extension of you, like your own hand. If you cut it, you would clean the wound. You would put a band-aid on. You'd take care of it because it's your hand. But what about her hands? And I'm not talking physically. I'm talking about her heart, her experience. Like she wants to sense that we own her as much as we own ourselves. And this is again where the paradox comes in. If we're a man who's not been taking care of ourselves emotionally, spiritually, if we're not taking high levels of responsibility and ownership for ourself to get ourself to a place of happiness, to get ourself to a place of ground calmed energy, to get ourself okay, then by default, she'll feel like we can't do it for her either. So we have to do it for us first. And by proxy, she gets to experience what that's like. It's just like back to the story I said at the start of this call, where if the race car driver is driving good, the passenger chills out. You kind of trust him. He knows what he's doing, and you feel safe. And that's what she's wanting to be owned like. Uh, I also mentioned the reality that sometimes you are married to the type A personality, the alpha female, the corporate executive. Like she's just killing it. She is organized. She knows what she's doing. She knows what she wants. So I found this chart on the internet because a type A is that ambitious, high achieving. And it said impatient there, but just the idea that they're ready to go, right? They got fire under their butt. No matter how alpha your wife is, her feminine side still craves to feel relaxed. At her heart, she still wants to feel that calm safety. And so you don't need to out alpha your alpha wife. You don't need to be more masculine than she is. Some questions to consider are you decisive? So she knows what's happening, right? Even the ambitious alpha female who's deciding the schedule, just getting involved in what's getting remodeled on the house, making the calls on a lot of stuff. She wants to know what she has to work with. And us guys tend to overthink this because it's very basic. It's the difference between walking out the door and not saying anything and being gone for 20 minutes because you were fiddling in the garage and then coming back versus the man that says, "Hey, baby, I'm going to go in the garage. I'm looking for something. I'll be back in 20 minutes or, when I find it." By simply saying what's happening, you're creating a structure. She knows what to work with now. She knows, "Oh, I probably shouldn't run off and take a bath right now because I have a phone call I'm waiting for and he can't get it." Like we don't realize how much it's helping her relax when you say what's happening. And this can get deep. This can get where you're having a conversation and she says something kind of offensive to you. Rather than having an emotional critical reaction, you can just say, "Ouch, that one hurt." Right? You're letting her know what's happening. A husband who's more quiet, reserved, he doesn't share his emotional world, and she needs that. Otherwise, it feels like she's married to a brick wall with no emotional presence. She needs that. Where is he? What's going on? And so by simply saying what's happening moment to moment, you're giving her that clarity. Do you trust your intentions or do you take her reactions personally? And so this means maybe you did go in the garage to look for something and you come back in and she's all pissed off. And she's like, "Why'd you walk off like that?" That's well, you're one of those men that just, okay, just walk away. You can't handle me, I guess. Let's say she gives you that response. If your intention was literally to go in the garage and look for something, you're not going to react to an assault on you like that because you know it's not true. You have nothing to defend because you know your intention. And that's a simple illustration with that story, but it goes deeper too. Because most of the time when we're standing up to our wife or trying to stand up for ourselves or stand up for anything, people are going to challenge it. People are going to question it. And if we go straight to that emotion mode, like we showed at the start, it says that we don't trust our real intention, which makes us feel like a fraud to them. It makes us feel weak. It makes us feel like we can be manipulated, and it just adds fuel to the fire. So, another question to consider: do you have a plan for yourself that you communicate, or do you go with the flow? So again, we're talking about the alpha wife, the woman that's the executive, calling the shots, knows what she wants. She's usually extroverted, very passionate, successful. Because if you're just in her boat floating through life going, "Oh, we live in this state because my wife got a good job. Oh, we're probably going on vacation here next summer because she wants to see a friend. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on for Christmas. Let me check with my wife." Like, if you're going with the flow like that, you're actually activating her fight or flight instincts. Because although she's good at it, she doesn't it's exhausting. It's she can execute it well, mostly probably because she had to as a child just to fill a gap. And so it's kind of a trauma response. So we think she's in her zone of genius when she's really in her zone of survival. And when you have a plan for yourself and you communicate that, it comes back to that first point there of being decisive and knowing what's happening and simply saying it. You're adding so much value to your interactions with her. When a man gains unshakable confidence in who he is, clarity about what gives him purpose, and has an inspiring mission he's living for, his wife is no longer able to get under his skin. This is key. He's detached from needing her validation and instead can give support, stand up for himself, and lead from a place of love and empathy. This is the man who can stand up to his wife and she can feel his heart, not his need to control. So, this is a critical principle to understand that you will be more respected by your wife when you're able to stand up to her. And when you do it from a place of trusting who you are, knowing what your values are, and you're doing it as the logical next step to because that's the man you are, and you're not coming in with your guns loaded, you're not emotional about it, you're not letting it get under your skin and making you all upset or uncomfortable. She can sense that it's you're doing it because you care. And she's going to react to that. That is how she feels like you are also not just standing up to her, but you're standing up for her. Because there's a deeper thing. And it's crazy how many times a couple will argue about something or think they've come to an impasse, and they're both arguing about something they both value in the same fashion. So, like, let's say you think your boys shouldn't be allowed to play video games before bed. You think that's not good for their brains or something. And she's like, "Well, I think it's good that they connect before bed. They should get to play video games because that's how they bond." And maybe it's flipped, whatever. The point is, you both have these seemingly opposing opinions about how something should go forward. Okay, the guy who's trying to please people will just back down and let her have her way, and he'll slowly get resentful. And she can smell it, man. She's going to react like what it's like to hang out with a resentful man, and it's not going to be more love and affection. So you're leading it. You're creating the very thing you're not wanting to deal with in the future by doing it in the moment. You might have won your battle, but you just lost the war. So if you were to think about it in the sense of what is it that I desire and value for my child, you might think, well, actually, it's because I value their mental health that I don't want them to play video games. And if you have a conversation about what you both value, she might eventually say, "Well, I actually value their mental health through connection. That's why I want them to play video games." So you both are fighting about the same value. There's a lot of couples that have parted ways thinking that was irreconcilable. But maybe you had the same values, you just needed to get more clear on the fact that it was a shared value so that you felt that connection, and then got more creative on how would we go forward with both of us from this shared value in a way maybe neither of us have considered yet. A slightly different approach, a third option that nobody's thought of yet that wouldn't make either of us have to, you know, feel there's a word for it. What is the word? Uh, the word when so when you're going to do something and then you don't because the other person doesn't want you to. It's not coming to my mind, but I think you get the idea. That is what grows resentment. So, guys, I did want to make sure I mentioned in this call that we are opening up in 2 weeks registration for the Vital Formula to Masculine Confidence course because we just hit the tip of about 10 different icebergs in this short time we've been on this call so far. These are deeper things to keep going in, and we help guys find clarity in this. It's not about knowing the right way to do something. It's about knowing how to be a relaxed man who can do both the right and the wrong, but he does it so sexy that he gets some pretty cool results. She's responding to your vibe, not if you're doing it right. So I'm going to paste a link in the chat now so that if you want to get on our waiting list for that, you'll be one of the first to be notified. It's also going to get you on our email list where we start sending you some exercises to get warmed up for session 1 and a 10% discount that won't be available for people unless they're on the waiting list.